Okay, done.
Great. Jai Baba, everybody. Welcome to the Lord Meher book reading. I welcome everybody who's with us on Zoom and all those who will be joining later to uh, see the recording. Another day. Let's see what we have in store today. So, this is about we are the wartime travel from us. We finished at page 2373 last week. We shall start from page number 2374 today. The next day, Baba was driven to Pune by Sarosh, accompanied by Pendu, Ghani, and Jal Kerawala. They stayed at Bindra House, and Baba met the Jaisawalas as well as his brothers Jalbai and Behram, and Behram's wife Perrine and their children. Meanwhile, in Bombay, Nauroji, Dada Chandji's 16-year-old son, Tehmtan, had contracted typhoid in the middle of July and had been taken to the hospital. His condition at first did not seem serious and improved somewhat with medication. His sister, Arnavaz, whom Baba had advised to study nursing, looked after him. Although Temtan did not want to take his medicine, she would tell him, Baba wants you to drink it, whereupon he would difficultly swallow it. She wrote to Baba, in his illness, he is thinking of you the whole time. He sings to himself your arti, and your sweet name is ever ready on the tip of his tongue. When Janji had seen Baba in Lahore on 30th July, Baba had remarked to him, I'm going to call Temtan to me. Don't worry, it is for his own good that he should be called to eternal life, while he is still pure and unstained by the impurities of the world. Devdam had always loved Baba dearly since their first meeting when he was only 4 months old in 1927. On the afternoon of 3rd August, Temtan died. He was Pachamai and Naroji's eldest son, and they of course felt very sad about his unexpected demise. They came to Pune to meet Baba, who consoled them. They told him with tears, an astrologer had told us that Temtan would be an accomplished engineer or doctor. Baba replied, Yes, he would have been a good engineer, but his life would have been miserable. So I cut it short and saved him from such unhappiness. You don't realize it, but this is my mercy for him. Soon after Baba returned to Mehrabad, Manik Mehta had an interview with Baba at Mehrabad on the 18th. On 17th August 1943, Baba went with Adi Senior to a film at the Arangam Military Cinema. He went again the next day at 4 p.m., taking with him five ladies Gulmai, Savak's wife Nargis, and Sidhu, Chagan, and Jangle's wives. Baba then visited Sarosha's home, Vilu Villa, in the cantonment, and Dean Shaw and Suna's house nearby. We have a footnote. Vidu Villa, Vidu Villa was located at 1B Hunter Road. He then went to Sailor's house and also Khushru quarters where he spoke with Khan Sahib. Baba left from Manmad with Chanji on the Punjab mail for Lahore on 19th August, arriving 2 days later. Lahore was now so hot, all the mandi were practically spent. Vishnu had grown weak, and he and Kali Mama had fever. Gani could not stand the constant, relentless heat any longer and begged to be sent back to Lonavala, which Baba permitted. On 22nd August, Needu humorously wrote to Adi Sr. in Ahmednagar. It is like Dante's Inferno here. Why Baba has chosen this place, no one knows. My argument is that our sins, which are still left, are to be burnt up here. I think that must be the only reason. On the night of 2nd September 1943, seemingly to escape the heat, Baba proceeded to Srinagar and Kashmir by train. Sorry, Srinagar and Kashmir by train. With a few of the women, Mehra, Mani, Meru, and Rano, and three of the men, Chanji, Kaka, and Baidor, with Chanji's help. Daulat Singh had arranged their stay in the Sam Hotel opposite Dal Lake. Chachi had been sent to Srinagar on 22nd August 1943 to make all the advance arrangements, and he had returned to Lahore on the 28th. Arriving in Srinagar on the 4th, Baba began his mass contacts, starting on the evening of the 6th. He went out daily with Kaka and Baidul and made a few successful contacts there. Nab Sahib was a very high mast, a man nearly 60 years old who still lived with his old mother and children. When Baba met him, they exchanged hats. Amir Sahib Matu was an old mast, believed to be over 125 years of age. He was usually naked in all seasons and lived in a small hut under a tree surrounded by his pack of 12 dogs, which he usually fed before he ate his food. Harthar Namdar was unusual, for he was both Salik and Mazub like, a highly advanced must. Supposedly then over 105 years old, he was usually found naked, sitting under sitting aloof under a tree. Hathar Namdar was known as a Mahant, head of a Hindu sect, and the head of an ashram where many of his disciples lived. Rahim Sahib, an elderly, well known must whom Baba had contacted before, would wander about the lanes and meadows of the village of Tulamal. Chaudhry Lath was a high Chalali mast who wore many layers of clothes even in the hottest months. He was difficult to contact because of his irascible disposition, and Baidul was even beaten on the back by him. He was also said to beat any woman who dared to come near him. He was a difficult fairy master, but a good one, according to Baba. Meanwhile, Mani fell ill with malaria. Some days she would have a high fever, and some days none at all. On the days when she had a high fever, she would eat only soup, and on other days her appetite was normal. Rano would inform the hotel keeper what to prepare, as the Eastern women were kept secluded and could not see, much less talk directly to any man. The hotel staff was confused over the constant change of diet, thinking one day only soup, the next day a full banquet. After a week on 9th September, Baba left Srinagar with the women Baidul and Chanji, uh, sorry, yeah, and arrived in Rawalpindi at 7 p.m. After having tea, they took the overnight Peshawar Express train back to Lahore, where they arrived the following morning at 5:30 a.m. The next day, Saturday 11th September 1943, Baba, Baidul, and Chanji left Lahore in the evening and arrived at Rawalpindi. Baba and Baidul went to buy a good pair of hiking shoes for their upcoming walking journey to Jasgiran. Chanji remained behind at the station to look after the luggage. Kaka also came to Rawalpindi from Srinagar with a mast who Chanji was to keep watch over. It is unclear from Chanji's diary whether he took the mast to Lahore or somewhere else before returning to Rawalpindi. Baba then left with Baidol and Kaka on the midnight passenger train, which was 2 hours late for Haripur via Taxila. Baba wished to contact a great mast in the small village of Jaskiran, which was about 20 miles from Haripur and was 2,500 feet above sea level. The only way to reach it was on mules, ponies, or by foot along the stony track. The trip was one of the most hazardous and memorable of all the must journeys Meher Baba made. Um, Marvin, could you read from here? Thank you.
On the 12th, Baba, Kaka, and Baidul walked over 20 miles, climbing up and down steep mountains of searing rock during the heat of the day, with nary a tree to provide shade for miles around. They crossed over dangerous and rugged, steep pathways at the edges of mountains, looking down on deep valleys and across strong river currents. They had no food except chilies, onions, and hard stale bread. The ponies given them to ride during the initial stages were not used to this kind of rough track through the narrow passes. They abandoned riding the ponies anyway, as Baba's thighs became sore and scratched, which made even ordinary walking that much more difficult. Reaching the village of Dasgiran, Baba tried to contact the very high must, later revealed by Baba to be between the sixth and seventh planes. This great must was also named Naga Baba. For 25 years, he had sat in a squatting position, utterly naked, on a hilltop, virtually a living sacred idol or god, exposed to all of nature's elements in sun, rain, and snow. The saint's strange diet would have been beyond belief had not Baba, Baidul, and Kaka, I'm sorry, wait. Ooh, okay. The saint's strange diet would have been beyond belief had not Baba, Baidul, and Kaka seen him eat it. He would eat dry bread with a paste made of wood, soaked in water and powdered stones, which was then molded into a cake by his caretaker. On one occasion, the saint pointed to Baba and told the small crowd, "He is my elder brother. He adjusts and protects the whole world." Baba sat near the saint for 3 hours, but could not get the opportunity to contact him alone, since Naga Baba was surrounded by devotees during the day and at scroll and at night and at night and at night his attendant slept by his side. Baba expressed that he was not happy with this manner of contact and wished to be alone with the saint. Disappointed, Baba led the men on the trek back to Haripur and from there returned to Rawalpindi, arriving on the 13th and staying at the Punjab Hotel. Chanji met them in Rawalpindi the following night, but that night a loudspeaker near their hotel disturbed Baba's sleep, and Baba complained about it again and again for more than half an hour. They had to be up anyway by 3 a.m. on 15th September and left by train for Gujranwala, where Baba contacted three musts. Mustan Ramatullah was a filthy must whose abode was a garbage And Naga Shah, Naked King, was a good most who lived in a hut near the train station. Scroll. Oh, next page. Most significant was Sheikh Malang Baba, a high must who lived in the Muslim shrine of Qadi Shah. Sheikh Malang was a mild-mannered Jamali must who had once been a judge in a lower court. He was a chain smoker of cigarettes, and because of his constant smoking and mild temperament, Baba compared this saintly man to Ali Shah of Ahmednagar. From Guj Ranwala, Baba, Chanji, Baidul, and Kaka traveled to Amritsar, where Baba made a contact. They spent the night on the station platform and at 5:30 a.m. on the 16th took a train back to Lahore, where Baba continued his must work. Baba began fasting on liquids, chiefly lemon water, on Sunday, 19 September 1943, and continued it for 7 days, breaking it on the 26th. During this fast, on the 21st, 8 musts were brought to Baba's bungalow, where they were bathed, fed, and clothed by him. All except one good must were sent back the same day. Baba kept that one must with him for 2 or 3 days. As age reminds us, one should not presume that because Baba was the avatar, his frequent fasts left him unaffected. To fast for 6 days on water affected him just as much as it would an ordinary man. Even while fasting, Baba would not slacken his pace or desist from his usual travels to contact musts. Baba's stamina was truly astonishing. Those who have fasted for any length of time can attest to just how difficult it is to be so energetic while not eating. On 28th September, Baba, accompanied by Baidul and Chanji, returned to the village of Kul Mokal to contact the revered must Sayyid Ahmed Shah again. After the contact, a hospitable Sikh zamindar, landowner, who did not know Baba, brought a sumptuous meal to the station platform for Baba and the Mandali. On the morning of the 30th, Baba contacted Nawab Ali Shah in a suburb of Lahore called Bagbanpura. Baidul had found this must a few days before, and at that time the must had told him, "I want to go to Aligarh." But the road is, I need to scroll, but the road is closed for me. There is a world-famous doctor in Lahore. I will ask his permission. If he gives it, I will go. Baidul asked the doctor's name. The must replied, Mani, the silent one, and you have come from him. Therefore, I am very, very happy. Next page. During this period, there were numerous reports in the newspapers that famine was occurring in Calcutta, Lucknow, and other places in India. On 26 September, the day Baba had broken his recent fast, he had told Chanji confidentially that he wished to go to Calcutta for a month and feed the people there, serving the food and distributing clothing himself. On Friday, 1st October 1943, Baba explained further, "This work of mine is quite distinct from that done by others. For spiritual reasons, I want to serve the food myself. There are hundreds of institutions engaged in the work of handing out free food, but I do not wish to work through them. The meaning of my feeding people is quite different. It is not to fill the stomachs of the hungry, but to feed humanity spiritually. My work is not purely for external or physical relief and aid. but as always has a spiritual significance. Relief work for feeding the masses goes on everywhere, to a lesser or greater degree, wherever there is distress. But in this particular case, where it is on a mass scale and people are dying in the streets by the score, it creates a special situation. My work for those in dire and real need, with food and clothing personally given, will have a double significance and benefit to all concerned. The current world crisis and suffering is to create and does create in mankind a hatred of Maya for things worldly, however attractive or dear. Parents giving away their own children, husbands deserting their wives, etc., are all indicative of a feeling of detachment from Maya. For me to work under these conditions is very important and beneficial, not only to individuals coming in my direct contact, but through them to others of the same class and to humanity in general. Otherwise, of what use is even spending rupees 10,000 for feeding the poor? Although we can ill afford it, materially, it will have very little effect when thousands are in distress and lakhs are being spent. But given under conditions of desperation, by me personally, by me personally, but given on the conditions of
To the true
desperation by me personally to the truly poor and the needy, selected and brought by my mandali, it has a great significance and a far-reaching effect. Baba further indicated, this work will bear fruit later, after I speak. Waiting for the next page?
Yeah, I didn't hear. This work will bear fruit later after I speak.
Yeah, I
Uh,
read that.
okay, Eva, can you read from the next page? Thanks, Marvin.
Sure. As usual, Baba did not want people to know of his presence or to recognize him. He emphatically repeated that his identity must be kept a secret and not disclosed. This was difficult in Calcutta, where Deshmukh had delivered speeches in 1941, and Baba's photographs had been printed widely in many newspapers. Another condition Baba laid down was that the feeding should be done in a separate house from the one where he would stay to further avoid recognition. To arrange all this, Baba sent Chanji and Baba Das to Calcutta on 4 October. Erich was instructed to leave Pune on the 6th and join them in Calcutta. This was, in a sense, not a feeding of the poor. Baba wanted to contact those lower middle class people who could not beg, but who had been rendered helpless by circumstances and were now destitute. According to the plan, Erich, Kaka, Baidul, and Baba Das were to find and bring about 50 middle-class persons each day, and also arrange for the utensils and food required. Chanji did his best to rent a bungalow in a quiet locality, but he could not find one that was available for such a short-term rental of only 1 month. No place was found for cooking and serving the food either. With much difficulty, Erich was successful in contacting Dr. Ray Chauriya, the chief organizer of the Pudo Pukar Relief Center, a charitable food distributing institution, whom he told A generous Parsi philanthropist from Bombay is desirous of feeding the poor. If you put some suitable place at our disposal, we would be greatly obliged. Dr. Charya agreed to make a school premises available for the purpose, but before he committed himself, Chanji presented before him the following 4 written conditions. 1, none of the members of your organization should meet the Parsi benefactor, except Mr. Charya, who can share in the work. The Parsi gentleman would like silence while serving the food. This was specially included so that Charya would not be inquisitive about Baba. 2, no one should observe the generous Parsi and his companions, even from a distance, at the time of serving the food. 3, a room must be arranged for the generous Parsi, where he may sit alone to distribute dhaotis and saris to the men and women. 4, your establishment should make complete arrangements, such as providing a cook, utensils, grains, servants, etc., for which all expenses will be paid. Also, the institution should select middle-class persons who need help and issue invitations to them in the name of the generous Parsi, whose guests they will all be. And next page. Dr. Charya accepted the conditions, but no private living accommodation for Baba could be made. The original plan was that as soon as all arrangements had been made, Chanji was to telegram Baba at Lahore and he would come. But as was Baba's habit, he arrived unexpectedly on Thursday, 14 October 1943, with Gustaji and Savak. Since no residential quarters had been booked, Chanji took them to the Broadway Hotel for one night. Adi Sr., Gulmai, Banubai, Irani, Deshmukh, Kaka, and Baidu arrived the following day. In the morning, Baba expressed how displeased he was with Chanji, scolding him badly. I sent you 10 days in advance to make proper arrangements, but you did not do a damn thing. He continued, I did not rest last night. The whole night has been hell for me. Have you no thought for my comfort and convenience? If you now fail to find a peaceful, suitable place for me to stay, I will have you hung upside down. Finding Baba in such an awful temper, Chanji said not a word and quietly went out to make the impossible possible. He again approached the owner of the house, who had refused to rent it for a month. The man insisted he would only rent his property for a year, and Chanji's flattery and persuasion had no effect on him. A Madrasi official named C.R. Sundar Rajan was residing nearby. When Chanji had visited this landlord 4 days before, Sundar Rajan had overheard Chanji and asked, "What exactly do you require, brother?" Chanji explained the benevolent work the philanthropic Parsi wanted to do for those who had suffered misfortune. And the Madrasi said, he can stay. He can stay. Oh, I lost my place. Oh, here it is. He can stay in my new premises where I am supposed to move into soon. But you have a family, Chanji pointed out. The generous Parsi wants a vacant house. Sundar Rajan explained that his family was leaving for Madras in a day or two, so the house would be vacant. So on the 15th, Chanji took Baba to Sundar Rajan's new house. Seeing him from a distance, Sundar Rajan was deeply affected. Sundar Rajan told Chanji, you can use my car also during office hours from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. He gave the use of his driver and included free petrol besides. In those wartime days, gasoline was strictly rationed and very scarce. But Sundar Rajan, being a high official in the supplies department, somehow managed to obtain it for Baba's use. And next page.
Thanks, Eva.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'll read from here. Baba approved the house, and Sundarajan moved into a tiny adjoining room on the premises. Baba bothered him every few minutes, sending him word not to make any noise. Sundarajan had to be content to remain in his room like a statue. When he had to go out, he would carry his shoes in his hands and quietly tiptoe out of the house. He would only put on his
Abhi?
shoes when he was well outside the gate. All this may sound strange and unbelievable for one who did not know who Meher Baba was, but Baba's attraction was so strong, even atheists changed their minds about God's existence and were ready to serve Baba when they met him. The Parsi Mandali were accommodated in the Parsi Dharamshala, and Deshmukh, a Hindu not permitted to stay at the Parsi Dharamshala, stayed in the Anand Bhavan hotel. All saw Baba
ఎందుకు మమ్మీ తింటదా ఇద్దరిని అక్కడ పెట్టరా పంపు చదువురా అది పెట్టు
Also, Baba every morning at Sundar Rajan's instructions. Soon after settling in, Baba changed his plan. Instead of feeding 50 people per day for a month, he now wished to feed all the hundreds of them at once. Chanji went to inform Dr. Choria, who gladly agreed to the proposal. Every member of his organization worked wholeheartedly. After a thorough selection process, they invited the most needy of the middle class to the feast. Tasty food was prepared, and dhotis and saris were purchased. The generous Parsi arrived at the school building on Tuesday, 19th October 1943, for the program and was escorted to a private room where he could distribute the food. One of the mandali was posted to make sure no one except the generous needy entered. Baba served food for to about 325 middle class persons who had become destitute. All the poor people gazed at him. They could not help themselves. Baba was such a unique personality that his splendor could not be hidden. The guests murmured among themselves, this Parsi must be a real Mahatma. How great he is to feed us so lovingly without any publicity. Others wish their names in the papers and photographers present for any small service. After the meal, Baba handed each man a dhoti and each woman a sari. His name was never disclosed, yet the wave from his ocean of love touched every heart, and in so doing, cleansed it more than they could ever know. For the previous few days, besides the feeding of the poor, Baba had been busy hunting for mus in Calcutta. He had given instructions also to have 10,000 chapatis distributed free to the poor on the streets. Baba blessed the chapatis and personally went out with Erich, Baidul, Kaka, and Baba Das in rickshaws to hand out the rotis. This work was done over a period of 4 or 5 days. One day, Baba called for sweet meat and cut it up into tiny pieces. He gave orders that everyone who was given a chapati that day must also be given a piece of the sweet, emphasizing that whether or not they actually swallowed the sweet, they must be made to take it in their mouths. His order was given, perhaps, because starving people cannot easily digest rich food. As mentioned, thousands of people were dying in Calcutta due to famine. The price of foodstuff had skyrocketed during the war, and even the middle class had difficulty affording eatables. Besides this, in the absence of proper hygienic measures to dispose of the dead, cholera was rampant. One estimate put the number of dead in Bengal during this time at 3 million. Deshmukh told Baba, cholera is spreading throughout the city and our drinking water should be boiled. Baba agreed, and Deshmukh brought an earthen pot in which to store the boiled water. One day, as Deshmukh was out distributing chapatis with Baba Das, he felt thirsty but was afraid to drink water from their hotel. The next day, he solved the problem by taking the earthenware pot with them and making Babadas carry it on his head. Deshmukh would go forward and Babadas would follow as best as he could with the pot balanced on his head. Baba sent Chanji and Adi senior ahead to Lucknow to arrange a poor feeding program there. Before Baba left Calcutta, he visited several local relief centers doing charitable work and gave money to one of the centers to purchase and distribute 2,000 vests to poor children to protect them against the cold in the coming winter months. Baba arrived in Lucknow at 9 p.m. on 21st October 1943 and stayed at the only available hotel, the Decrepit Central Hotel.
The decrepit.
Thank you, Marvin. No bulb, dusty cots, no running water except during certain hours, and not even a glass and flask for drinking water. The program in Lucknow was arranged with the help of Mr. Jay Prakash of the Rama Tirtha Publication League. It was held in the Verma Memorial Hall Library on the 23rd, and almost 250 people attended. There was some disturbance at the beginning as the Brahmins insisted that separate cooking arrangements be made for them, as they did not wish to eat food cooked and served by non Brahmins. They refused to take their meal with people of other castes, but the moment Baba arrived at the hall, they forgot their prejudices. Age observed, Baba's presence was like the rising sun, dispersing the darkness of their minds. His presence electrified the atmosphere, and his sweet smile conquered all differences of caste and creed, although here too Baba's true identity was not revealed. Everyone sat down quietly, and Baba Deshmukh, Chanji, Eric, Baidul, Adi Senior, and Baba Das began serving the meal. God Himself, in guise of a charitable Parsi from Bombay, was hosting a banquet for them. Those present had never been served food that way before, and during the meal they continuously stared at Baba. After the meal, Baba called each guest one by one into a separate room and handed out clothing and 1 rupee to each. Some asked for the generous Parsi's address, but their requests were ignored. Janji recorded these thoughts about the event. It was very difficult to arrange the feast in Lucknow, as many there knew Baba from his photos and articles about him in the newspapers. Luckily and wonderfully, however, the work was done quite to Baba's satisfaction. It is on the face of it inconceivable to ask people to help in a work like this, where they had to arrange for so many important details to collect a certain number of truly deserving, starving people for feeding, owning a certain number to arrange for cooking food for these in a private place, and then to ask the same willing workers who helped in all this to go out and leave the premises for Baba and the mandi to serve them all privately as Baba wanted. All the time, Baba's identity was to be guarded, kept a guarded secret, and these mandali working for this had to tell the local workers that they, the mandali, were doing all this at Baba's express desire and instructions. Even the division of labor and duty was instructed by Baba personally. The local people were to arrange for the deserving to come and to come to the feast and to cook food there, and the mandali to serve them. The strict privacy with mourn, that is silence to all except one. This would cover Baba's identity as desired. The food was cooked and kept ready. All were ushered inside the hall. Putrawali largely plates, salt, etc., were already served. All the outside workers were asked to go out and all the doors were closed. Then Baba was brought from the hotel room quietly and ushered into the library room to serve all. Baba left Lucknow later that same day by train. Eric was sent to Nagpur, Raipur, and Bombay in connection with a new circular that Baba had issued postponing the calling of the signatories to Mehrabad until May 1944. Baba and his group arrived in Jalandhar the following afternoon, Sunday, 24th October 1943, at 2 p.m., and stayed at the Punjab Hotel near the station. At dawn the next morning, Baba began his mass work, and Gulamai, Adi Senior, Baidul, and Chanji accompanied him. They went first a few miles away to the village of Jamsher, where, in the house of a weaver, Baba contacted a childlike Mastani with a sweet, enchanting smile, who was called Munibai. In Jalandhar, Baba contacted another Mastani who was held in much esteem by the local and was called Budhiya Mastani. She lived in Harijan colony. Later the same day, Baba, the Mandali, Deshmukh, and Baba Das took a train to Kapurthala, where he contacted a 25-year-old Mast. The young man was also naked, and his parents, who were gardeners, cared for him. Baba contacted two other Masts and, after working with them, returned to Jalandhar at 5 p.m. At 7 a.m. on the 26th, Baba, accompanied by Chanji and Baidul, left Jalandhar and arrived in Pagwara 45 minutes later. He took a tonga to the village Sangatpur, where he contacted Neki Shah Baba, a high mast who for 25 years had sat outside his hut but never went inside it. Nearby, the mast kept a pile of 7 sacks filled with rubbish and also kept the Aduni burning day and night. The mast made fuel cakes from cow dung, and villagers would bring wood for his Duni. He usually sat near the fire, but with a blanket pulled over his head so people seldom saw what he looked like. Nikisha was held high esteem by the villagers, had a small ashram where disciples lived. When Baba contacted this mast again 10 years later, he was called Nuraya Baba. Okay. Marvin, you want to read?
In the village, Rampura, Baba contacted Hudai Baba, another high must. He was a sturdy old man dressed like a peasant who lived in a rather large house with his own courtyard, where he kept many head of cattle. This must was well kept and mannerly, and after their contact offered Baba tea. In Pagwara, Baba contacted a must named Khurshid Baba, who lived in a cemetery. He was dressed like a sadhu in an ochre-colored robe, although he was a Muslim by birth. Another must was Swami Kali Parbat, an old man who was advanced, who was well known in the area where he had an ashram and a group of disciples. After these contacts in Pagwara, Baba returned that night to Julandhar. Baba Baidul, Adi Sr., and Chanji left again by the morning train on 27 October 1943 for Hoshaipur, which they reached at 9 a.m. Baba wanted to go to the telegraph office first and then have a meal, but Baidul suggested going in a certain direction to contact a nearby must. The Tonga driver, however, got lost and they ended up wasting time rambling about for a long while, which upset Baba's mood. His instructions had been disregarded, and his plans, scroll it, and his plans were consequently upset. The must could not be traced, however. Baba did on the way come across a young Mastani walking past their Tonga, whom he contacted. She was called Mastani Babaji. She was quite beautiful and fair of face and wore scarlet clothes. She had many devotees. They then drove back to the town and found a restaurant where they had a meal. They hired another Tonga. Baba wanted to go to Harmoya first, where he wished to contact a particular must. Despite the recent memory of his first mistake in overlooking Baba's precise instructions, Baidul made another serious mistake in disregarding Baba's instruction. Baidul indicated that the village of Sisoli was closer and told the Tonga driver to head there. After several hours of futile rambling on very rough, sandy roads, they got lost. Finally, after crossing through numerous fields and sand, and with the help of a fine young lad as a guide, they arrived at 3 p.m. in Sisoli, which was only 7 miles away. Baba worked with an old must there known as Baba Mastan, who had spent 14 years under the same tree. It was too late to go to Harmoya, a village about 5 miles, so Baba and the men returned to Hoshaipur at 5:15 p.m., also with great difficulty in finding the correct road and having to walk for miles through fields, and then went back to Julandhar by taxi and train.
Thanks, Marvin. Mahu, can you read next?
Yes. So this is, just a little bit. Okay. They arrived utterly exhausted at 8:30 p.m. The trains were very crowded due to the Diwali holidays, and Baba had to sit crammed between other passengers. They got up early the next morning at 4 a.m. and left Jalandhar by the 7 o'clock passenger train, arriving at 4 a.m., and left Jalandhar by the 7 o'clock passenger train, arriving at Lahore at 11 a.m. On the 28th, their Adi Senior and Kaka were sent out every day to find an quote-unquote ideal boy. When Baba returned to Lahore, he gathered the Mandali on Friday, 29 October 1943, and spoke about his recent work in Calcutta and Lucknow. The situation in Bengal is pitiable, but I am pleased that I managed to do my work there incognito with the aid of the Mandali. Immediately after my return, the new viceroy named Archibald Wavell visited Calcutta. Similar crises are to follow throughout India, especially in big cities like Bombay. For years, I have been repeatedly saying that India must suffer most of all. This is the beginning. Even in such awful conditions of famine, never seen or heard of before, people daily dying of starvation, by the thousands in the streets and on the open pavement. This is but one phase of more still to follow, such as epidemics and pestilences. Pestilences, I don't know what it means. Although apparently the British government is blamed as the principal responsible authority, what could poor Leopold, Amery, or Churchill do against a divine will? Divine will, and there's a footnote. Okay, I can proceed if you want. After all
One-
that's okay,
I'm
sure,
just going to read it. A minute.
sure.
Leopold Amery was a British statesman and conservative politician. During
Hmm.
World War II, he was Secretary of State for India. You may
Oh,
continue.
okay. But he was British? He was from England? No.
I just,
Ah,
you want me to read it again? I can
if you
read it
don't
again.
mind, yeah, I didn't catch it. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Leopold Emery was a British statesman and conservative politician during World War II. He was the Secretary of State for India. Yes, he was British. Yeah.
Okay, got
Thank
it.
you.
After all that suffering, the country's condition will improve. Had it not been for my key, their fate would have been worse. Because of the wartime restrictions, Baba changed his plan of proceeding to Iran and declared his intention of moving all back to Mehrabad. He dictated the following circular. As intimated in my previous circular of August 1st regarding my traveling to Iran in November 1943, and then having the intimate group stay near me for a month from January 15th to February 15th, 1944, both these now necessitate adjustment due to conditions explained below. The government of India has just returned all passports unendorsed, expressing its inability to grant permission to anyone to go to Iran except on business connected with the war. Even for this decision, the government took over 3 months. This refusal of the government seems to be on the grounds of the large number, about 20, of the group who were to accompany me to Iran. It seems almost certain that permission may be granted for a smaller number later. The government's reply to this, however, cannot be expected before the end of the year, like December 1943. And next page. But the months from December to March being severely cold with snowfall and so forth in Iran, that period would not be suitable for the particular work I want to do there. I have therefore decided to proceed to Iran by the middle of March 1944 and return to India by the middle of April. I have also received letters from several of the group stating their difficulty to get leave during January 1944 for the group meeting, although they have all expressed their readiness to give up their service, quit their jobs, means quit their jobs, or even studies if it came to that, to enable themselves to be near me for 1 month. Much as I appreciate their service and spirit of renunciation for the love and devotion they have for me, and their readiness to obey me implicitly at any cost, I do not, capital, want them, for reasons of my own, to give up their worldly duties. Taking all this as also other important factors into consideration, I have now decided to have the group near me after my return from Iran, from the 15th of May to the 15th of June 1944, when all the students and those serving in educational institutions will incidentally have the benefit of their summer vacation, and even others of the group can conveniently arrange for the leave required. Except for this postponement, due mainly to conditions created by my own self, all other arrangements and programs for the group meeting, as also for the fulfillment of the spiritual experiences mentioned in my previous circulars, remain unaltered. The doubting ones, the important ones, and the disappointed ones need not hesitate to back out, since that would not be considered by me as their weakness, but will simply be taken as their unpreparedness for falling in with the appointed spiritual time, and they will at the same be blessed by me as ever. Let those who sign their readiness to accept this postponed period with a heart full of faith clearly understand that these postponements mean that the sacrifices for that period will be all the more intense and acute. Those who have been ordered to fast for 7 days in January 1944 should now do so from May 8th to 14th, both days inclusive, and break their fast with and near me on May 15, 1944.
Thank you, Mahu. Let's stop the recording here. Marvel. Okay.